Welcome for our online training sessions. In this session, we are going to talk about null values. How we will go for handle the null values in SQL, which is very important. So first we have to understand what is null value and how to handle this null values. So why the null values are allowed into the tables? While defining the table means while creating the table, if we don't specify any constraint and user might have not entered the value in that particular column, then null value is taken by the system. For example, you are going to fill the bank account to open application. There might be 100 fields. Out of that, bank says that only 15 fields are your first name, last name, middle name, date of birth, your phone number, email ID, location, address, like that 15 are mandatory. Remaining 85 are optional. But still the organization wants to capture that information from the customer. It's up to the requirement or up to the customer point of view whether they will provide it or not. Okay. So that time, obviously, when they create a record, only 15 columns will be updated. The remaining columns will be null values. So basically, if you say what is the definition, what is meant by null? Null is nothing but nothing or undefined or unassigned or unassigned. It represents missing or unknown data. And each null value is unique. So you cannot say that all nulls are equal. Each null is unique. Unique in the sense it's not equal. There is no question of that null is equal to null. Null is equal to null. Okay. So null is not equal to 0. Null is not equal to 0. Null is not equal to space. Null is not equal to empty string. Null is not equal to null. So you cannot go for compare null value in any of this options here. It is like this. Okay. So whenever we say that we have a null value in the column, that will be like this. It's a placeholder column. You can store some value. You can update that value. So whenever you enter the value, it will be replaced. For example, there is already column having some null value like this, and you are trying to pass some value and it's going to be updated here. Then whatever the value we have passed, it's going to be updated here. Why we are supposed to work with the null values? So you may think that if you have null value in the column, then why we need that values? We are talking about null value is nothing but nothing. It's not representing any or missing data. Okay, so then why we need that? Whenever we are doing some calculations, maybe that column is included. So some rows having null values, some rows are not having null values. Okay, for example, if we look at this example here, employee ID, employee name, and salary. We have 3 fields. And for every employee, we want to add 2000. Then we'll write update statement. We know DML statement, update table name, set salary equal to salary plus 2000. In salary field, we do not have any null value. So no problem. Salary plus 2000, 32,000, 47,000, 52,000. Automatically it will update. But if your column is having some null values, let's say this example, let's take this example. So later you got another employee and employee salary is null, means you are not entered the salary for this employee. You have not entered the salary in employee. And you are trying to update $2,000 or rupees to this employee. So obviously it's going to be here null value. How come it is 2000 you are adding to the null? Whenever you try to update some value to the null, then automatically it will become as a null. Because it won't treat that as a 0, right? So whenever we are working with null values, whatever the operations you use, it will become as a null. Plus symbol, If you add some value, subtract, multiply, divide, except concatenate operator. This is very important question in the interviews. I'm going to concatenate null value with some other value. Concatenation is nothing but a combination. You are trying to combine pipe symbol. Okay. So you are going to combine this option, then you are going to have this value here. It is concatenate operator. It's going to have. So this remaining all are not going to be added, and it's going to treat as a null value. It's going to treat as null value. Here it is. Okay. Then how we can work with these null values? What SQL is telling, if you think that in this column, there may be null values, or maybe in future, null values can be entered into this. It means there might be some null values here in this column in future. Then obviously today you are writing query. So far you don't have null values. Then fine, your query will work today, success. But after some time, not only select statement, update statement or delete statement. Okay. So after some time, if there is any null value, then your query will not be able to handle those null values. That's why now itself, if you feel that null values may be there, then we have to handle. There are 3 SQL functions available to work with null values. What are those 3 values? One is NVL, another one is NVL2, another one is coalesce. There are 3 functions. Of course, is null and is not null is for comparison point of view. These 2 also we use. Is null, is not null. This 2 also used to compare this values with null values. We are going to use this. Okay. So first we'll talk about NVL. So NVL is a built-in function, SQL built-in function, which we can directly use it. But before we use NVL, we are supposed to understand the functionality of this function. Any SQL function, whenever we want to use, first we have to understand the functionality of this particular function, then we can start using. When I say functionality, what input we have to pass to this particular function and what it returns. That is what actually the functionality for an SQL function here. Okay. So here NVL, it substitutes a value when null value is encountered. When null value is encountered. So whenever we are having some value here, if it is null, then it will replace with the value whatever you are passing. If it is not null, no problem. Whatever the value you passed, it will get it. You will get it. Okay, that's. So we are passing 2 arguments, means 2 parameters. First one you are passing the string, means column or some fixed value. Okay, or some fixed value. And if it is null, then whatever you have mentioned here, that's going to be used. If it is not null, that as it is, it will be used. As it is, whatever the value. The problem is when this string is null, then what you want to tell to the system or what you want to use. That's if it is not null, no problem. Whatever is value is there, that will be continued. Okay. So NVL is used to substitute a value in the place of null. That's the answer we are supposed to give. If they ask us what is NVL function in SQL, whenever we want to substitute a value, when null value is encountered in our columns, Okay. So here NVL2, second one, it is used to handle null and not null values also. It will be used to handle null and not null values also. If your value is null, what you would like to go for it? If it is not null, then what you would like to do it? So in both the scenarios, it will work. In both the scenarios, if value is null, it takes expression 2. If value is not null, it takes expression 1. That is NVL2. Then what is this example? If we take it is NVL2. For example, you are passing the value here, ABC. This is not a null value, right? So obviously it takes the first value. It takes the first value. Whatever the string you are passing, if it is not null, it takes the first value. If it is null, then it takes the second value. For example, you are passing null, then it takes the second value. It takes the second value. It means whenever you are selecting the data from that column, whenever you are selecting the data from that column, if system gets some value, then it will replace with the first value. If system don't get the value, if it gets null value, then automatically it will take the second value. So NVL2 is used to handle the null as well as not null values. But NVL will be used to handle only null values. Here it is. So here only 2 parameters. Here 3 parameters, means 3 arguments. That's the difference between these two. That's the difference between these two. That's again a standard question. Difference between NVL and NVL2. It's very simple. NVL is used to handle the null values. NVL2 is used to handle the null and not null values also. Even if you get some value here, so what do you want it to use it? If you get some value, then what do you want it to use? If it is null value, then expression 2. If it is not null, expression 1, means first value, like that. Okay. So this is about the NVL and NVL2. Then we are talking about coalesce function. It's first non-null value. You can have multiple values here, and you would like to go for take the null value. Here, if you look at the example, if the first value, if you do not have any null value, system will return the first value. If first value is null, then the next value will be returned the result. If first 2 values are null, then this value will be returned 3. So it means system is trying to find wherever null value it finds, then it takes immediate value. It's a very rare case, this function. Generally, NVL and NVL2 will be using. NVL2 also, whenever we want to handle not null values also, then we will use that. Otherwise, NVL is a regular. It's a frequently will be using in our SQL, as well as here it is options. Okay. So let's go ahead with this handling of all this NVL and NVL functions. Whenever we are working with SQL, we will find a dual table. Let me just show you. Purpose of dual table is whenever we want to work with some static values, means fixed values. Let me connect SQL developer here. So it is also another important question in the interviews. What is dual table? And when you will be using the dual table? Dual is a default table. You work for any client across the world for Oracle database, you will find this dual table. Select star from dual. It contains only one column and one row. It contains one column and one row. So whenever you have some value and you wanted to apply some SQL functions on this value, then we will use the dual table. You want to test that particular function. Okay. So why can't we use some other table for testing? You can use, no problem. Then what happened? It returns the number of rows, whatever you have this records. You have 14 records, so it returns 14 or whatever it is. But here it returns only one result always, because there is only one row, right? One row and one column. Okay. So now what we are trying to do is here, we are going to work with first DL, then we'll work with the corresponding tables examples. So right now I'm writing NVL. Select NVL of I'm passing the text here, comma. Now what is the returning value? Dot. Because what NVL function will do is, first it will check, is it null or not? If it is not null, as it is, you will get a result. If it is null, then it returns this value. It takes this value. Okay. So now I'm going to pass here. Now we can see whenever you go for pass the null value here, then it has replaced with this value. It has replaced with this value. It's not only the text, or you can pass any number also here. Depends on the requirement. You can pass the number or date, whatever it is. Now we have tested with a simple null value, single value. So whenever you want to test your SQL functions, not only NVL, any SQL function, if you want to test with the sample data, single value, which table we will use? Dual table we are going to use. That's the purpose of dual table. Very simple question, not much complex question. Okay. Now we will test it on the tables. So right now, I'm going to use employee number, salary, commission from employee table. Now we can see null values are there in commission. Now if I apply salary plus commission, what happened? You are going to get the result if we have the values in both the columns. 1600 plus 300, 1900. 1250 plus 500, 1750. But 800 plus null, as we discussed in our previous PowerPoint presentation, null value plus any value is null. Null value multiply any value is null. Null value divided by any value it comes is going to be null here. That's why it is clear. So when you feel that this column may contains null values, this column may contains null values. Depends on your business requirement, you have to replace that value. Let's say your client is telling that if commission is null, then consider 0. That employee commission is 0. Let's consider. Then what we will do? NVL of commission, comma 0. That. So instead of just selecting the commission directly from the table, we are applying NVL function. We are applying NVL function on this column and we are passing the value. We have already tested here how the NVL functionality will work. This we can completely forget dual table. Once we get experience, generally we don't work with dual. Sometimes when we are working with string functions, it will be very useful. String functions are date to get the result before we apply on the table. Okay, so that. So now what NVL will do is it takes the value from the commission column. If value is null, immediately it will replace the 0. 0 plus 800, 800. If value is not null, immediately it takes as it is. If value is not null, it will take it as it is, 500. Then again we got null, immediately it takes 0. Like that, instead of using the column directly, we will use NVL to go for a replace with the new value. So now there won't be any problem. Here you are going to get it 0. And why we are getting null value again here? Okay, so it is taking 0. But this we are not going to combine, right? This we have to combine here. Okay, so what we can do is, let me display the commission as it is. While doing the formula, means calculation, we can go for apply. See, salary, commission is null is there, but we converted to 0, you got 800. You got 800. Of course, if you want to display here also, you can apply again NVL of commission comma 0 like that. Let's say client is telling that if the employee has got commission as null, consider $10. So we'll pass 10. We'll pass 10. Then we'll get 800. Here also I wanted to display that 10, then we have to apply NVL of commission comma 0 here. Okay. So this is how we will go for using the NVL function whenever we want to handle the null values here. Whenever we want to handle the null values, here it is. Okay. Now we will go for NVL2. Before we apply on the table, first we'll check manually. Okay. Manually we are going to check. Select NVL2. If the value is India, then I want it to take IN. Otherwise, I wanted to take it as India. From dual. So what we have done here, NVL2 we are using. Excuse me. So if you have the value here, if it is not null, it takes this value. If it is null, then it takes this value. So it depends on your requirement. You can go for choose. Depends on your requirement. You can go for choose. So here you are passing the value. That's why it is taking. If it is null value, I just wanted to take it as US here. I'm passing, sorry, null value. Then it will consider this US. Okay. So NVL2 will have 3 arguments, means 3 input parameters. First, it will verify. If the value is null, then it takes this value. If value is not null, then it takes this value. If it is null, then it takes this value. Second value will be replaced with null. If it is not null, then this value will be taken. Let's say client is telling that we'll apply on the table. In employee table, we have employee number, employee name, salary, commission from employee table. Okay. If commission is null, I would like to consider 100. If it is not null, I would like to consider 500. That's my requirement. So I don't want to give this year. I don't want to give this year commission for all the people, whatever the amount we have committed right now. If null is there, give 100. If not null is there, give 500. That's a fix. Maybe organization has committed giving the commission 1400. But due to some reason, we decided if you have null value, give 100. If it is not null, give 500. That is fixed. So what we'll do is we'll go for specify that NVL2. First, you have to take the input commission, comma. If commission is not null, give 500. Otherwise, give 100. If commission is null, it has taken 100. Second value will be replaced. If commission is not null, first value will be replaced. So in your column, there will be only 2 values, either 100 or 500. If it is null, this. If it is not null, this. If you have this type of requirement, then we have to use NVL2. So it's a standard question in the interviews. What is the difference between NVL and NVL2? As we discussed in our slide, the basic difference. NVL will be used to handle the null values. NVL2 is used to handle the null values and also not null values. I'm handling here. But here you are not handling. You are just only null values you are handling. Not null value, you are just getting as it is. You are not doing anything, not null value. But here I'm handling both. That is the difference. NVL takes only two parameters, two arguments. NVL2 takes three arguments. That's the difference. That is the difference. Okay. So that's about the second one. NVL and NVL2 we have used. Now we are going to talk about the third one, which, as I said, coalesce. Very rare case we will be using this. Whenever we are passing some values, if you do not pass any value, it takes the second, that value as it is. If you do not have null value, then if you have null value, then the next one. If it is second column also is null, then third one will be taken like that. Select. Now I got India only because the value, whatever is passed here, the value, whatever is passed here, so that we got the value, whatever we have passed here, that we got as it is. But if it is null, then what system will do? It takes the second value. If the first value is null, then it takes the second value. If the second value is null, then it takes the third value. It takes the third value. Okay. So now what we'll do is select n salary, comma, commission from employee table. Now what happened? It's taking this value here. Wherever salary is there, it's taking this salary, because for every employee salary is there. Obviously, it takes that salary only, right? Let's say this alias name I'm putting as result. So salary is there, that's why it is taking. Let's say I'm writing reverse order, commission, comma, salary. Now what, if commission is there, then fine, it takes commission. If commission is not there, it takes the salary. If commission is not there, it takes the salary. So if commission is there, it will take as it is. If commission is not there, then salary will be taken here. Salary will be taken. So we'll take one real-time example here for this function. Let's say we have a table called create table employee address. Okay. So employee address, city, varchar 2 of 100. Then after that, city, they said that it's not null, means obviously value will be there. Then after that, state. Varchar 2. This is also not null. Then after that, address 1, means a street name or something. It is optional. Address 2. Varchar 2 of 100. Address 3. And country. Address is created. I'm inserting the record into this table. Insert into employee address city, comma, state, comma, country, address 1, values, I'm putting as Hyderabad, state, Telangana state, country, India, address, Kukatpalli. One row is done. Then I'm going for second row. Hyderabad, Telangana state, India. Then address 2. I'm not passing address 1. I'm passing address 2. So address 1 is going to be null value. I'm putting it as KBHP. Next, I'm going to pass another value here. Address 3. JNT. Second row. Okay, 4 records we have. Start from employee address. Now client is telling that I want city name, state name, country. If address 1 is there, pick that value. For example, if address 1 is null, take the address 2. If address 2 also is null, then take the address 3. That's the requirement. So in this scenario, we'll write a function. City, comma, state, comma, country, comma, address. So somebody will, here we will go for use this function. If address 1 is there, then it will pick. Otherwise, it takes address 2. If not, then it will pick up address 3 from EMP address. So finally, we'll give this address. Right. So when the client is telling, you might have seen when you are filling some applications, they'll say that your street or address 1, address 2, like that in the fields. So when you enter that information, if address 1 field is entered, then pick that. That's fine. That's fine. We don't require address 2 and 3. If address 1 is not there, check maybe address 2 is exist. If not, then check address 3. If not in all these 3 places, null value only will get it here. Okay. So that's what we are going to work here, these functions. So this is going to be our options whenever we are working with our coalesce function. NVL, NVL2, and coalesce. These are the 3 functions which we'll be applying. We'll be applying here. It is based on the requirement. Based on the requirement, we are going to apply. So it's a standard questions handling the null values. Whenever we are testing, we will use this dual function with static value. Static value means single value. Single value whenever we are working. If it is value from the table, then obviously we have to use this one only will be working. Obviously, when we are working in the project, we don't use the dual. That is for our testing purpose. Before we apply that in our regular SQL query, we'll go for use the dual table and then start working on that. Okay. So let's go ahead with that. These are the important questions. So how will you handle the null values when you are working with the database in SQL? Then second one is, what are different null value handling functions? NVL, NVL2, coalesce, is null, is not null. We have already talked about is null, is not null when we were working with where condition in our sessions, right? Then what is difference between NVL and NVL2? And what is mean by coalesce function? That's how we are going to work here. Okay. Thank you. Let's go for practice all this one. We'll see in another session. Very important thing. Thank you.